Andy, tell us a little bit about yourself and
Okay.
tell us kind of what is UX like.
Okay, well, a little bit about myself. So I've been working in UX for 25 years or so. So I've seen uh, the field develop and grow and change. So
Oh
what
yeah.
we thought of as UX was different 20 years ago than it is now.
Hmm.
But basically, UX is just a collection of different tools and methods and kind of like lenses on a problem that you can use to ensure that your product and service, whatever it is that you're doing, will work for the people who you're designing for, and that would get you product market fit.
Okay, so it really does come down to that experience and product market fit, and yeah, giving some guidance, yeah, of how do you accomplish that. That's what you're. It's like a toolbox in a lot of ways. Is that?
Yeah. So a lot of people think about UX as what are the colors, what fonts do I put in here, how rounded should my buttons be, and that's part of it, but that's a small part. So let me share my screen real quick.
Sure.
Let's see right here. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, so this is like a diagram of the levels of UX. So like any model, it's imperfect. So you can always, well, what about this? What about this? What other thing? Well, yeah, sure. We can have a discussion about that. But it's good to give this overview that UX incorporates all of these different things. So I'll go through this very quickly. You have a lot of people talk about UX, UI design. If you notice on this, UI is a very small part of what UX is. It's the surface. It's this visual design part. And as you go down, you get more and more abstract. So this model talks about the skeleton and lists all these different things: interface design, navigation design, information design. Then it goes down a level further to information architecture and interaction design. Then a little further into scope, functional and content requirements. And then at the bottom here, the base of everything is strategy, understanding user needs and business goals. And, this model's imperfect. I'm really big on the context of use of the environment in which the people using your product or service operate in. I focus more on these lower levels. Earlier in my career, I started with this part at the top, and I can still do it, but I'm much more engaged in this the full scope of what UX is.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One question, even before we kind of dive into the different stages, a lot of times, just like we think about surface, a lot of times when people first hear UX, they're thinking more on the UI side. But also, even if you think you read out like, oh, skeleton, it's like, okay, it's interface, navigation, but even down to structure, it's like information architecture. It still kind of feels like there's always a screen involved. But I know that UX encompasses interactions and experiences that don't just involve a screen and a window. So is that like, can you speak to that a little bit? Like, so say someone is doing, maybe they're doing consulting, and so they don't have always a screen. They're doing a lot more person-to-person type of business, or maybe they deliver a service. How does UX, especially as you're talking about kind of that lower chunk, how does that apply to those forms of businesses where they're not making an app or something like that?
So the bottom three parts here are going to apply. They're not just digital. They apply to service and out in the real world. No matter what kind of a product that you're doing, you need to understand the strategy around it. You need to understand what are your requirements around that. Information architecture has to do with how you're organizing information around your business. So let's say if you're a coffee shop,
Okay.
there's a strong information architecture component to that. Like you have a menu, you have
Right.
the way you talk to your customers, and all that is things you need to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, skeleton in this model, this is very digital centric, but you could apply skeleton to service design.
Okay.
That instead of saying interface design, you could talk, well, what is your process for accomplishing what you want to accomplish? Navigation doesn't only apply to a computer screen. It's
Right.
you get around an environment. And information design applies to service as well.
No, that's great. No, that's a good way to name that. Service design is, all part of that UX universe there, and can be really helpful to a lot of type of businesses. We see people starting in this age where they're offering their smarts and they're selling their expertise in those different kind of business offerings. And so, well, let's jump in to talking through some of the different stages of business and how does UX apply in those. That sound good? Let's take a look. There's different stages of business, and so what people are going to focus on in each stage is going to vary. So let's talk about the existential stage. So that's our very first stage that we all begin in, and in that stage, you're really trying to define, hey, what is it I'm serving? Or not, what is it I'm creating? Who is it I'm serving? And why do I want to do that? Those are some of the core questions. We're really trying to, why does this business exist? Why am I beginning it? So when they're at that stage, what are some of the UX questions that people should be considering in there?
Okay, so it's really easy to take that and kind of map it to what are the UX questions.
Yeah.
Which are things like, who are the users?
Mm-hmm.
What are their needs, behaviors, and pain points?
Okay.
What's the environment in which they operate, their context? And what are the problems that you could solve? So UX can apply to stage one existential in providing methods in figuring that stuff out.
Yeah. Flesh that out for me. Let's say you're starting a business where you let's think about one of these. Let's say you're starting a team building kind of consultancy where you come into medium-sized companies and help with their leadership team and their sub teams. Let's say that's your business. Let's talk about kind of what you just talked through of those the context they're in, the needs, kind of that list you just walk through. Maybe let's walk through it with a little skin on it. Yeah.
Okay. So you said that this is a team building consulting company.
Yeah.
You're targeting medium-sized companies. Okay. Who exactly are you going to be consulting with on team building in medium-sized companies? That's the first question to ask. So
that's good. All right. Kind of doing this made up a little bit as we go, but let's say you're gonna be talking to kind of that core leadership team, most likely the couple of people who founded it, and then because now each of them are probably leading some sub teams in there.
Okay, so maybe the core leadership team and the direct report. So what I want to do is I would want to sit down with you and maybe other people who you're working with. Mm-hmm. And I want to kind of do just a quick exercise where we would identify, in the core leadership team, this is going to be like a CEO, there's going to be a finance person, just kind of like map out who the different stakeholders at that kind of company are and how they interact with each other. Mm. And this may give you some insight on how you would build this business based on the people involved. Mm-hmm. So that's just the first step. That's just identifying who they are. Mm-hmm. Now you know that the core leadership is going to include like a CTO and a CFO, maybe a chief
sales and marketing. You
Yeah.
got you got like maybe some HR staffing type person.
Well,
Yeah.
well, let's go talk to some people who are in sales leadership. Let's go talk to some CTOs, some CFOs, and we'll figure out just some questions to ask them around what their experience is in their company and what their issues around team building are, what their concerns around team building are, and how do they do that now? Do they currently work with any consultants in team building and other things? How do they engage? How do they bring consultants in? What would encourage them to bring consultants in? So you can see, you can do these structured, open-ended interviews.
Yeah.
And you can capture a lot of really rich information that can be used to understand the context of how they work and also their behaviors, who they are. And a lot of times this can be embedded in a way that's really easy to navigate and easy to understand as a design target. And this is what a persona should be. Now, another way, and something that people do a lot, there's this idea of lean personas, emerging personas, where first you identify who these stakeholders are, and then you can start to build out an assumption persona based on things you think about this person, this user group, things you think about their behaviors and motivations and where their needs are. And then you still need to go and talk to them, and that can validate, were you right on your assumptions or were you wrong?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so that's the who and what are their needs and the environment. Okay, so after you collect this information, you can gather with your core group of co-founders, assuming you have them, and you can do some guided brainstorming sessions, which can help you identify what are the problems in this space, and what are the issues that medium-sized companies are having around team building. And then you can
so you're kind of looking for recurring themes in there, right? Like as someone who's maybe been doing this, like you said, maybe they've worked with other people, maybe one-off along the way, or they've been doing this a lot in other contexts. And so you're helping them identify, hey, what are some of the recurring themes of pain points that this ideal customer has?
Right? Yes. Okay. And then you can do activities to figure out which are the pain points to target.
That makes sense.
Maybe you're not even describing the pain point in the correct way. You can have an activity around the language to use to describe your pain point. This is essential because you need your solution is only going to be as good as how you've defined your problem.
That's a good call out there. I like that. Yeah, because if you haven't done a good job problem finding, then your problem solving solution is not mapped to a solid starting point there. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Awesome. Okay, so as they're in this existential stage, those are some of the good questions that obviously they need to start tackling. And from a UX perspective, are there some good resources as people are trying to do this? Where can they look for some help?
Let's see. So a skilled UX or human-centered design person could help them with this. Could consult with them and help them identify what questions to ask. You could have someone who's skilled in UX or design research go and actually do the interviews, or at least help structure what the interviews are. And then you can bring in somebody to facilitate the follow-up workshops to help synthesize. That's what, looking at themes across the different interviews that you did. and help you understand what the problems are and prioritize them. And then once you've defined what your problem is, now you can do some brainstorming on what are some possible ways that you could solve that problem.
I like that. So you mentioned kind of experts like a human-centered design or UX expert, kind of, yeah, at this early stage, who are kind of some of the experts, or who are the people that someone needs to know regarding the UX aspects of forming their new business?
Who are some of the types of people?
Yeah, if they kind of have a roster of people that they're connected with in their network, who are some of the people that would be good for them to know?
So you can find these very experienced UX generalists, and these are people who I'm a UX generalist.
Yeah. You can say that.
Somebody like you want to have somebody who has an entrepreneurial founder mindset.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't find or that someone who has experience on working on all stages of product and service design, from the early research and ideation strategy through wireframing and prototyping, through implementing, that's a really good person to work with.
Mm-hmm.
If you can find somebody who's good at research and can help you go and understand the market that you are addressing, go and interview people. That's maybe that's the one person you target. Then and these aren't full-time employees. These are like consultants or fractional people.
Mm-hmm.
And another one would be somebody who's good at facilitation, who understands design thinking methods and skills, and can help you take the information that was collected through the research and kind of workshop it and figure out what these themes and categories are, and help you put together your research-based personas. And maybe there's like an experience that a user experience in the problem space that you can map out, and then identify what's working well currently, and what things are manual, where are the opportunities and the pain points in the current experience.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think that's really the skill set that you'd be looking for in this stage. It depends on how far you want to take it. Do you want to start concepting? Do you want to start sketching out the to-be experience of your product?
Yeah, that's probably more as we step into this discovery stage, which we'll talk about here in a second. But kind of just to echo back, what I hear you saying is those skills. Obviously, the generalist is helpful, but that generalist is going to have some of that research skills and facilitation skills. Those are the two things that seem like I'm hearing you say really come out in this existential stage, because that facilitation, they're helping draw out that expertise. Because if you're an expert in something, whether it's team building or finance or whatever you're building your business around, you're an expert. And so it all makes sense to you. All the problems seem easy to solve. And so that gifted facilitator can help draw some of those things out and frame them from the perspective of your ideal client versus from you as the expert. And so it seems like, that facilitator, but then that researcher to go and validate that with your audience, or do some of those interviews, or synthesize some of the interviews that are done. Yeah. What
you need to be careful about at this stage is you don't want the visual design surface layer here, unless you're at a point like that person might be useful if you need to have some proof of concept to get funding right off. I'm not sure when you're going to be doing that part.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably also in the discovery stage. But no, that's a good call out there, Andy, of there's probably a lot of things that we have an idea and suddenly we're like, I want to make a website. And it's like, no, who are you helping? What problem are you solving? So there are even some kind of UX like good things, but they can kind of be pitfalls here in this early stage because we kind of get ahead of ourselves and kind of start answering the wrong questions. Because if we don't know the people we're serving and the problems that we're solving for them, then the colors on the website and the words and the call to action and all that, those aren't as relevant until you get these essentials out of the way. So
yeah, so the things that you're doing at this more early strategic level can help shape and define how you'll do the visual design later.
Yeah, no, that's really good. All right, well, let's kind of wrap up here and talk about like the overall, like, we've talked about each of these stages here, but if someone's just chiming in for one of these videos talking about an individual stage, give me just kind of like a recap as we've gone from existential all the way through saturation and then kind of an event. Just give me kind of a recap view of the role of UX as a business grows and matures.
So the role of UX across all these different stages is really very similar.
Mm-hmm.
This has to do with how formalized and if it's fractional or full-time permanent roles who are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And just what goes across all of the stages are things like doing user research to find out about your customers and the environment in which they work,
Mm-hmm.
and then documenting that in an actionable way.
Okay.
And then, I described that and then visualizing things based on that, visualizing your service or your product, and then kind of refining that in the later stages as wireframes, as comps, as prototypes, and then continually iteratively testing and validating that you're on the right track, or that you're identifying where you need to shift as your customers or market shift.
Yeah, that makes sense. So no, I appreciate you walking through each of these stages. This has been really helpful, and I encourage anyone watching these videos, if you're catching just one of the stages, maybe watch the two adjacent stages, the one before and the one after that you're currently in, if you haven't watched those already, because it's really helpful to get kind of a picture as you've really fleshed that out. So
well, and I would add, after watching these, if you have any questions, reach out, and I'd love to meet and chat, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Andy, you've been a great resource, and I'm excited to see how you continue to help this community of founders grow their businesses.